Hello everyone, here is the 6 important points of this chapter that you may find them in UBC Real Estate and Mortgage Broker Licensing exam. Let's have a look at them. The first point is that there is not absolute ownership in Canada. Crown, through the federal and provincial governments, own the land. Number two, federal and provincial governments can evict, expropriate, and get the tax on the land. Third point is that largest bundle of rights that an individual has is called fee simple. Number four, an owner individual can sell the rights, lease or grant a right of way and pass the rights to heirs. Number five, immobility of property means land is subject to externalities. And finally, number six, externalities can have good impression, like a park or shopping mall, or have negative effect on the land, like landfill. Thank you. Hello, everyone. In this chapter, we talk about fundamentals of law. The first point is that there are three types of governments in Canada: federal government, provincial government, and local government, which is called municipality. The second point is that common law is based on the former decisions, which is called stare decisis. Stare decisis brings uniformity that is created as the result of the similar decisions for the similar cases. Judge look at the former cases, which is called precedents, and then make the final decision for the case. Point is that federal government gets the power from constitution. Federal government is responsible for federal laws, bank reserves, postal service, and so on. Provincial government gets the power from constitution. Provincial government is responsible for education, condo regulations, property regulations, and civil laws, civil rights. And the next point is that local government gets the power from provincial government, not from the federal government. Building by laws and traffic regulations are two examples of the responsibilities of local governments. And the last point is that when the court find the common law unfair, the court can use the equitable law to create fairness and equity. This chapter talks about the Real Estate Services Act. The 6 important points of this chapter are: number one, real estate trading services are including finding the real estate, showing the property, advising, negotiating, presenting offers, and receiving deposits. Number two, rental property management services are including collecting rent or security deposit, managing by making payments to third party, negotiating or entering into contract, supervising employees or contractors hired. Number three, strata management services including collecting or holding strata fees, contributions, levies, or other amounts, exercising delegated powers and duties of a strata council. Number four, exemptions from licensing are employees of the principal of the real estate transaction, collection agents acting in the course of their business, individuals acting on behalf of developers, notaries, appraisers, and property inspectors. Number five, unlicensed assistant can unlock the property, perform office duties, draft documents, bookkeeping, place or remove signs, witness, arrange for repairs. And number six, real estate councils Real estate council has 16 members, 12 from the province, one will be elected, three government appointed, who are called lay members. This chapter talks about estates and interest in land. The six important points are: number one, real property consists of land, the rights of related to the land, and whatever is growing upon or affixed to the land. Number two, an estate is a legal right and it is not tangible. It is less than fee simple. Number three, life estate is an estate in land which lasts for the lifetime of the holder. It is called life tenant. Number four, life estate is registered as a charge against the title of the property. Number five, life estate Puratur V is an estate based on the life of life tenant. When life tenant dies, the estate which is used by a third party under a life tenant Puratur V goes back from third party to the owner or reversioner or to someone that reversioner had determined, who is called remainder man. Number six, there are three types of common law wastes: voluntary wastes, permissive wastes, and ameliorating wastes. This chapter talks about title registration. The six important points are: number one, void deed is a deed that is not capable of transferring any title in the land from the vendor to the purchaser, so the transaction is null. Number two, most common types of void deeds are forced deeds, deeds given in exchange for an illegal act or thing, deeds signed in circumstances where the party can plead non-est factum, which means this is not my deed. Number three, four important principles to the title registration in BC are indefeasibility of title, registration, abolition of notice, and assurance principle. Number four, a registered charge is not guaranteed, like a registered title. Number five, exceptions in BC are notations of trust, forms of documents, registered charges are not indefeasible, and caveat. Number six, caveat is a note placed on the certificate of title, warning those looking at the title that a claim has been made. If caveator wants to enforce the interest claimed, he or she must start a court action within 2 months period and register a certificate of pending litigation against the certificate of title. Thank you. In this chapter, we learn about land ownership and the law of tort, trespass. Number one, trespass is a wrongful entry or remaining or placing something in other people's property. Number two, trespass should be intentional. It is as a result of a direct act of trespasser and is actionable per se. It means no need to prove the damage to show that someone has trespassed. Number three, occupier or the property owner can sue for trespass. Owner of the property can sue if as the result of the trespass we have permanent damage that affects the value of the property. Number four, remedies of trespass are damage, which is the amount of decrease of the value of the property, not the replacement cost. Injunction, self-help, which is someone helps the trespasser to leave the place. Number five, in the following cases you can claim that no trespass has been done: lawful exercise of a right of way, express or implied permission of the occupier, peaceful entry of a person who entitles to possession, entry by landlord or sheriff to levy a distress, entry under statutory authority. And number 6, if you pass a no entry sign, then you have trespassed. If you mistakenly enter a property, you have trespassed. But door-to-door sellers are not considered trespassers. This chapter talks about tenancy law. Number 1, fixed-term tenancy has the end date, whether the tenancy may continue as a periodic tenancy or continue for another fixed term, whether the tenant must vacate the rental unit on that date. Number 2, fixed-term tenancy just can be terminated by mutual agreement or by a cause, like non-payment of rent by tenant. Number 3, periodic tenancy is a tenancy based on the period of time, like month to month. It can be terminated based on the notice of the either party, as mentioned in Tenancy Act. Number 4, if landlord, his or her children, his or her parents, his or her husband or spouse, his or her husband or spouse's parents want to move into the rental property, then the landlord can give 2 months notice to tenant to vacate. Number 5, landlord can give the notice of the end of the tenancy agreement to a tenant who does not pay rent when it is due. Tenant can pay rent owing within 5 days of receiving the notice, which cancels the notice of the end of tenancy. And number 6, damage deposit is half of the month's rent. Landlord has to collect it when tenancy entered into. Landlord should pay interest on deposit. Landlord can charge tenant deposit for pet, keys, access card, garage door opener, and prepayment to tenant is based on condition inspection form. This chapter talks about Strata Property Act. Number 1, strata plan shows boundaries of land, location of buildings, schedule of unit entitlement, registration number, schedule of voting rights. Number 2, unit of entitlement determines the ownership of common property and maintenance cost for each owner. Number 3, strata corporation includes every owner of a strata lot, 1 vote per unit. Corporation receives standard bylaws. An arbitration award can be filed against the strata corporation in Supreme Court of BC and be enforced against the strata corporation. Number 4, strata corporation is responsible for maintaining, managing common property and common assets, making an administrative fund, making a contingency reserve, and enforcing bylaws. Number 5, strata council consists of some of the owners of a strata. The developer hands over the supervision of the development to council after the developer sells a number of the strata units. The council is the executive body of a strata corporation. Number 6, strata council use the standard bylaws and can be amended to suit their needs, such as no rentals, no pets, owners over 55 years old. Members of the council can amend the bylaws by 75% or unanimous vote in a special meeting. This chapter talks about financial statements. The 6 important points of this chapter are: number 1, different types of organizations consist of sole proprietorship, which has an owner with unlimited liabilities, and the owner pays income tax applicable. Number 2, general partnership, consists of two or more partners. Profit is divided based on partnership agreement. Every partner has unlimited liability. Every partner pays tax based on his or her income tax range. Number three, limited partnership is similar to general partnership, consisting of one or more general partner or one or more limited partner. General partners carry on business and have unlimited liability. The limited partners do not carry on day-to-day business, and their liability is based on the amount of capital they have invested. Both the general partners and limited partners are taxed based on their personal income tax. Number four, corporation is a separate legal entity. It means it is like an individual has the rights and the liabilities. Corporations are run by the shareholders through the board of directors who are elected by shareholders. Board of directors are responsible to company, not to the shareholders. Number five, joint venture is a complex of persons or corporations. It is not a separate legal entity, and investors pay their tax based on their personal income. And number six, accrual basis is an accounting method that revenues are recorded when they are earned, but on the cash basis, revenues are recorded when they are received. This chapter is about professional ethics. The six important points of this chapter are: number one, code of ethics brings the fairness among the social actors. Number two, Real Estate Services Act sets the minimum standards of conduct required by law. Number three, some of the duties of licensee to clients are duty to uphold the law, duty to care about the human rights. It means no discrimination, duty to be competent, duty to ascertain the facts, duty to advise fully, candidly, and honestly, duty to follow the instructions of client, duty to discretion, confidential communication, duty of protecting and promoting the personal, financial, or property interests of client. Number four, licensee cannot attract the other licensee's clients by unfair means. Licensee should provide accurate information as to the existence of the latent defects and zoning and potential uses. Number five, Realtors Code of Ethics come from Canadian Real Estate Association. And number six, Real Estate Board is responsible to carry out the Code of Ethics. Thank you. This chapter talks about law of contract. Six important points of this chapter are: number one, void deed is the deed that never existed. But voidable deed is a contract where one of the parties to the contract has the option to rescind the contract. Number two, essential elements of a binding contract are offer, acceptance, consideration, legal intention, capacity, legal object, and genuine consent. Number three, misrepresentation is a false statement of fact made in negotiations before the contract is made. To have a misrepresentation, there should be a false statement. It must have induced the other party to enter the contract, and the statement must have been one that can induce a reasonable person. Number four, When the false statement is made without knowing it is false, in this case, the innocent party can sue to rescind contract before completion, but cannot sue for damage. Number 5, fraudulent misrepresentation is when a person making the false statement knows it is false or says the statement recklessly and does not care whether it is true or false. In this case, the plaintiff can sue to rescind the contract at any time and sue for damage. And finally, number 6, patent defects are the defects visible to the eye or they can be discovered by a reasonable inspection. But latent defects are not discovered by this inspection, like termites or buried oil tank. Thank you. This chapter talks about contracts for real estate transactions. The 6 important points of this chapter are: number 1, Section 59 of the Law and Equity Act says that all contracts dealing with land or a disposition of land must be in writing to be enforceable. They are not void, but if they want to be enforceable, they should be in writing. Number 2, leases of 3 years or less do not need to be in writing to be enforceable. Also, if the court realizes that it could be unfair, it may enforce even the contract which is not in writing. Number 3, Competition Act comes from a federal statute and is designed to eliminate privately imposed restraints on trade to encourage competition. Number 4, Competition Act prohibits the price fixing, market sharing, or making bearing agreements that lessen competition unduly. Also prohibits deceptive advertising or misleading advertising in material facts. Courts consider general impression of the advertisement. Number 5, no need to deposit for a contract to be bound. For a binding contract, we need a consideration that can be a promise and not necessarily money. And number 6, the main requirements of a contract are offer, acceptance, and consideration. Thank you. This chapter talks about law of agency. The 6 important points of this chapter could be: number 1, there are 3 types of agency agreements: express agency, which has an express agreement; implied agency, like taking a car to auction and selling it; agency by estoppel, like principal acts in a way that third party believes that one person, who is the agent, has the agency authority. Number 2, ratification means an agent's authority is granted retroactively. The principal later consents to be bound by the unauthorized acts of the agent. Number 3, there are 3 types of authority: express authority, implied authority, usual or customary authority. Number 4, apparent authority is when a third party realizes from the conduct of the principal that there is an agent and agent possess authority. Number 5, termination of an agent's authority is by conduct. Either party can terminate the authority at will. If the principal sells the property, then the agency is terminated, although he may be liable to pay the commission, or by operation of law, death, insanity, or bankruptcy of either principal or agent, and also the doctrine of frustration will terminate the agency. And number 6, there are 3 types of listing contracts: exclusive listing, multiple listing, and open listing. Thank you. This chapter talks about introduction to mortgage. The 6 important points of this chapter are: number 1, primary mortgage market is where the loan was started to purchase the land. The borrower receives the funds secured by a mortgage from a bank or credit union. even the seller of the property. This type of mortgage is called vendor take-back mortgage. Number two, secondary mortgage market is where the existing mortgages are bought and sold as financial investments. The purchaser buys the right to receive the stream of payments which the borrower had agreed to make to the original lender. Number three, each mortgage is unique, means that each borrower has his or her own terms and conditions under which the money is to be repaid back to lender and how the lender will be compensated. Number four, liquidity means how easy and fast the property can be sold and converted to cash. Number five, fully amortized mortgage is when the loan term is equal to amortization period. So the final regular payment will repay the remaining principal balance and interest accrued. And number six, partially amortized loan is when the amortization period is longer than the term. Terms are usually 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. This chapter talks about types of mortgage. Six important points of this chapter are: number one, variable rate and fixed rate mortgage. When the interest rate charged on the loan may be changed during the term of the mortgage. In this case, the mortgage payment may be changed. So this type of mortgage is called variable mortgage. But in fixed rate mortgage, the rate is fixed during the period of the term. Number two, interest-only loan is when a buyer borrows money from the bank and pays back just the interest amount in a specific period of time and still owes the whole principal amount to the bank. Number three, interest accruing loan, which is the highest risk loan to the lender because no payments are ever made. The interest just accumulated over the life of the loan and it is repaid to the lender at the end of the loan or stated time. Number four, straight line principal reduction loan has an equal amount of principal repaid in every interest compounding period, plus the interest for that period. The borrower has to pay the largest payments at the beginning of the loan, and gradually the amount of payment decreases as the principal amount decreases. Number five, constant payment mortgage loan has equal payments throughout the life of the loan. Payments are paid on a specific frequency. And finally, number six, vendor take-back mortgage is a mortgage that buyer gets from the vendor. The seller has a mortgage on the property and passes to the buyer as part of the sale price. Thank you. This chapter talks about the mortgage law. The six important points of this chapter are: number one, mortgage is not a loan. It is an interest in land created by contract as security for a loan made by a lender to borrower. The lender is called mortgagee and the borrower is called mortgager. Number two, repayment clause states that the monthly payment is calculated based on the amortization period and the full amount of outstanding balance is shown as due and payable on a fixed date. It also determines the payoff conditions. Number three, the acceleration on default says that the principal and interest amount will become due and payable at the option of the lender if the borrower defaults or commits waste to cause to diminish the value of the land. Number four, omnibus clause gives the lender the option to pay any money that the borrower defaults on and adding these charges to the principal amount. Number 5, the mortgager or borrower should provide the amount and types of insurance that the lender inquires. Number 6, sales clause says that in the event the mortgager sells the property, the full amount owing to lender is due and payable at the option of mortgagee. This chapter talks about Local Government Act. The 6 important points of this chapter are: number 1, federal government provides the laws for Department of Fisheries and Department of Transportation, like the height of trees or buildings around the airports. Number 2, agricultural land reserve or land freeze are under the provincial government supervision. Number 3, based on Health Act, which is under the provincial government, Public Health Department is responsible for the health of public, and installation of septic tanks disposals should be based on this Act policies. Number 4, Highway Act comes from provincial government and requires the approval from Ministry of Highways when rezoning of lands located with a radius of 800 meters of an intersection. Number 5, Local Government Act creates 3 different levels of local governments: regional districts, municipal governments, local improvement district. And number 6, OCP means Official Community Plan and is a long-range plan dealing with existing and proposed developments in the municipality. Thank you. This chapter talks about taxes and real property. The 6 important points of this chapter are: number 1, tax rate is the amount of tax per $1,000 of taxable value, which is called mill rate. Based on that, when we want to calculate property tax, we need to multiply tax rate by net taxable value and then divide it by 1,000. Number 2, taxable value is determined by the assessor each year. Number 3, there are different types of tax like school tax, general tax, and hospital tax. Number 4, homeowner can appeal the decision of the assessor. It can be reviewed in the review panel, then appeal panel, then Supreme Court of BC, and then BC Court of Appeal. Number 5, notice of assessment is part of assessment roll, which determines the value of the property. Number 6, to use tax deferment, the owner must be 55 years and older, widowed or widower, handicapped or permanently disabled, Canadian citizen or permanent resident who has lived in BC for at least 1 year. This chapter talks about building design and construction. The 6 important points of this chapter are: number 1, soft changes means the use of existing physical sizes, like when we say 2 by 4 inches, which is the size of a lumber, but the actual sizes are 1.5 by 3.5 inches, and now is called 38 millimeter by 89 millimeters, which is in metric system. Number 2, soft changes involved the establishment of metric standards, like the 100 millimeter is the building module. Multiple of this module is used by designers in planning room sizes and distances between structural members, like common spacing between floor joists is 300 millimeters. Number 3, The most important objectives of National Building Code or BC Code are structural safety, public health, accessibility, fire and structural protection of buildings. Number 4. External styles of homes are Tudor, which features post and beam with plaster and stucco; West Coast, which features low slopes, angular roofs with large overhangs and broken rectangular walls; Ranch, which is located on large lots, has one story and some have crawl space; Prairie, which features one story, low sloped shingled roof, irregular windows that start from floor level. Number 5. Bay window is the extension of the floor and walls to increase the area, and is covered by a separate roof. A dormer window is an extension of the roof to make extra floor area. Number 6. Classification by structural method are log, A-frame, brick, stone, concrete block, post beam plank, western platform wood frame. This chapter talks about real estate appraisals. The 6 important points of this chapter are: number 1, in BC, anyone can do appraisal work and charge a fee for this service, and there is no special license needed. Number 2, ceiling price is the maximum price that the buyer pays, and the floor price is the minimum price that the seller sells the property. The sale price is value in exchange, and it should be between floor price and ceiling price if the deal wants to occur. Number 3, recent means a period of time immediately before the appraisal is being done, in which the prices in the area have been relatively stable. Number 4, similar means in the process of comparing other properties to the subject property, the factors that have major influence on buyer and seller decision. Number 5, appraisal methods are comparative method, income method, cost method, and residual method. And number 6, value of property can be a lump sum dollar amount or can be expressed as an income flow or rental value. When appraising the values in a property like the fee simple, long-term leases, and airspace rights. This chapter talks about comparative and cost method of appraisal. The 6 important points of this chapter are: number 1, value of a property is influenced by many factors like building and design, which is size, number of rooms, layout, construction and maintenance, equipment and appliance, size of the lot, and characteristics of the lot, which are view, streams, soil, etc. Title and condition of sale. Assume mortgages if the rate is other than the market rate is one of the factors that affect the value of the property. Number 2, in comparison method, we used the rating grid. Rating grid adjusts the sale price of all comparable properties to the subject property. Comparison method is used when we have many sales and many comparables in the market. Number 3, in cost method, we calculate the cost of making the improvements and less the depreciation and add it to the value of land. The limitation of this method is that cost and market value may not be equal, usually when the property is not being used at its highest and best use. Number 4, physical depreciation is wear and tear, loose boards, paint, top, or foundation. Major structural members are also physical depreciations. Number 5, functional depreciation is like a deficiency in fixtures, fittings, wood heating furnace, outdated design, architectural style, and narrow hallway. And finally, number 6, reproduction cost is the cost of making the exact copy of the subject property, which is called replica, and it is impossible to use by appraiser. The appraisers use cost of replacement, which is the cost of making a new or modern one of subject property, and decrease the depreciation from it. Thank you. This chapter is about income method of appraisal. There are 6 important points of this chapter. Number 1, gross potential revenue of a rental building is estimated by the rents received in the similar properties. Number 2, vacancy is usually calculated as a percentage of gross potential revenue. Number 3, usual operating expenses in a rental property are property tax, fuel, electricity and maintenance and repairs, replacement reserves, wages and management fees, insurance and miscellaneous costs. Number 4, these items are not considered operating expenses. Debt service, depreciation, capital cost allowance, mortgage payments, interest on mortgage, and income tax. Number 5, yield is capitalization rate. Once the net operating income is calculated, it must be converted to market value, expressed as a capital sum. This process is called capitalization process. And number 6, market value of a property is the ratio of net operating income of a property to capitalization rate. This chapter is about from contract to completion. The 6 important points of this chapter is number 1, completion date is the day that vendor is entitled to the net proceeds of the sale and purchaser is entitled to the transfer of the title. Number 2, when calculating the cash proceeds of sale, which is the net amount of cash that seller gets in completion date, we prepare the statement of adjustment for seller, and when we want to calculate the amount of money the buyer should give to lawyer or notary public, which is called balance due to complete, then we prepare the statement of adjustment for buyer. Number 3, the seller pays the agent's commission, so we don't have the commissions in buyer statements of adjustment. Also, if the purchaser gives a commodity like a car, or boat, or a diamond, or even land to seller, the value of that comes in buyer's credit and seller's debit. Number 4, if seller has not paid the property tax on due time, then a penalty should be paid in addition to the property tax. Seller has to pay the penalty and the tax, and then it should be adjusted for the buyer. Number 5, the amount of mortgage or loan that buyer gets from the bank comes in buyer's credit column and doesn't appear in seller's statement of adjustment. Any fee to clear title comes in seller's debit column. Discharging mortgage on the property comes on seller's debit column of statement of adjustment. And finally, number 6, the assumed mortgage by the buyer comes in seller's debit column and in the credit column of buyer's statement of adjustment. This chapter talks about the introduction to marketing. The 6 important points of this chapter are: number 1, marketing is the business of communicating value of product or service to consumer with the goal of increasing the sale. Number 2, target market is a segment of market sharing a common need and is based on the property type, consumer type, location, and resources. Number 3, in shopper's behavior model, the products and services are classified based on the amount of effort that the consumer likes to do to obtain that product or service. Number 4, in shopper's behavior model, products are classified as convenience goods, that buyer buys it frequently, like groceries, shopping goods, that they buy after doing comparison, like a car or a home or appliances, specialty goods that are unique, like type of car, like Ferrari, and unsought goods that buyer buys them based on precaution like life insurance or fire extinguisher. Number 5, based on the most effort to least effort needed to buy a product, the products are arranged in this way: specialty needs, shopping goods, convenience goods, and unsought goods. And number 6, 4 phases of shopping behavior are: feel need, pre-purchase activity, purchase activity, and post-purchase activity. Good luck with your exam. This chapter talks about technology and real estate licensing. The 6 important points of this chapter are: number 1, Personal Information Protection Act regulates the private sector and collecting, using, securing personal information. Number 2, shareware is type of software that the manufacturer distributes for free so that the users encouraged to buy additional functions or future updates. Number 3, licensee should keep the hard copies of documents with the electronic ones. Number 4, emails should have salutation and the name at the end, sparing humor, no sarcasm, no need to all capital letters, refraining from using glitches and cheeky taglines. Number 5, scrambling credit card information to unreadable shape is called encrypting, and this technology is called cryptography. And number 6, firewall is a security measure to prevent unauthorized internet users from accessing your computer. Thank you and good luck with your exam.